Hello class and welcome to our 10th lecture series on Managerial Accounting, and I'm your instructor Jamal Haider. Today we are starting a new chapter called Relevant Cost for Decision Making. It is chapter 13. Okay, let's start. So our first learning objective is identify relevant and irrelevant cost and benefits in a decision. So this chapter is chapter 13. We are just learning this chapter a little bit earlier because we just have maintaining the connection between CVP analysis and then variable costing, and then with this relevant costing, then it is very easy for you to understand. Okay, so the cost concept for decision making. So decision making, if we divide the cost based on decision making, then the cost gonna be categorized as relevant costing, sunk costing, opportunity costing, right? So recall our discussion, our second lecture in which we talk about the cost classification. We learned over there this concept. So a relevant cost is a cost that differs between alternatives. What does it mean? So all the same costs that are between these two alternatives that are not considered relevant. So common cost, they can be set aside, only the differences they're going to be counted for. So an avoidable cost is a cost that can be eliminated in whole or in part by choosing one alternative over other. So in that case, avoidable costs are relevant cost, right? So in other sense, we can also, take these avoidable and unavoidable cost as, because the avoidable cost is because that cost differs between the alternatives, right? If we choose one cost over the other, it is means we can avoid that cost. So it means that cost is different cost, right? So in that sense, if we categorize the relevant cost between avoidable and unavoidable, then avoidable cost is relevant cost. And all the unavoidable cost or the similar cost between these two alternatives, these are called irrelevant costs. So two broad categories of cost that are never relevant in any decisions. Number one, sunk cost, and all the future costs that do not differ between the alternatives, or the unavoidable cost. Simple. So now you understand what we are trying to do here. We are segregating cost and we are basing our cost based on decision making. So when we decide something, so we categorize our cost. So relevant cost, irrelevant cost. So relevant costs are avoidable cost or those costs which differ between alternatives. The unavoidable cost that do not differ between the alternatives, and the sunk cost. So if you recall, what is the definition of sunk cost? Sunk cost is the cost that has been incurred and cannot be recovered. So here, there is a two-step process to find out the relevant cost or avoidable cost or differential cost. Step one, you eliminate the cost and benefits that do not differ between alternatives. Simple. Step two, use the remaining costs and benefits that differ between alternatives in making decisions. The costs that remain are differential avoidable cost. So simple, you need to make two columns and you need to compare and you make a difference, that's it. So the difference column is called avoidable or differential cost. So I'm going to pause my video here and I'm going to be switching off my video. Okay, switched off my video so that I can use this pen. Okay, so there's two-step process To find out the relevant cost, we discussed that one. We write it down the cost that do not differ, and then the remaining going to be the difference. Here we go. So we have an illustration from your book. That is, a Cynthia, a Boston student, is considering visiting her friend in New York. She can drive or take a train. So we have two alternatives: drive or take a train. So by car, it is 230 miles to her friend's apartment. She's trying to decide which alternative is less expensive and has gathered the following information. Here we go. We have depreciation, we have cost of gasoline, annual cost of insurance, maintenance, parking fees, and we have total average cost of 6.619. So she thinks that 0.619 multiplied by 230 miles is going to be her total cost of the trip. So where this annual depreciation came from is just, they have given the information here that the car is for 24,000 and it can be sold at 10,000 after 5 years. So 24,000 minus 10,000 divided by 5, answer is 2,800, right? And that is annual, per year. And the gasoline cost is, it is 2.7 per gallon and divided by 27 miles per gallon. So you can just find out the 0.1 is the cost per mile. Similarly, the parking fees at school. So she submitted the parking fees on annual basis, and now 8 months left. So 8 months parking fees is 360. And now, yes. No, wait a second. Here, yes. So costs that are relevant in one distinct situations may not be relevant in another context. Here we go. If we just if we just want to find out whether the costs are relevant in only one situation, can we find out? Here we go. So if we just base our decision based on just car, so she will go from the car. So which costs are relevant in decision making? So this depreciation is relevant, yes, because the more you drive, this is per mile, cost per mile, the more depreciation going to be. Cost of gasoline, yes. Annual cost of insurance, relevant, it's per mile. She calculated that, yes, because the more the car is old, the insurance premium going to be higher as well. Maintenance and repair, yes, relevant. Parking fees at school, relevant or irrelevant? Answer is irrelevant. Why? Because whether she has gone to New York or not, she already paid in advance. So that is not relevant, right? It's not like that the more she drives, the more she have to pay the parking lot. So that's why the next slide says that costs that are relevant in one decision situation may not be relevant in another decision situations. So thus, in each decision situations, the manager must examine the data at hand and isolate the relevant costs. So let's compare this. Now we have two alternatives. Number one, we already discussed that. This is having your own car. And this is if you go through train. So if you go through train, a reduction in resale value of a car. So this is some additional information. Reduction in resale value of the car per mile of wear and tear. Round trip fare, it is $104. Benefits on relaxing on train, we cannot quantify since this is a subjective matter. Cost of putting dog in kennel while gone, $40. Benefits of having car in New York, we don't know and we cannot quantify that here. Hassle of parking car in New York, also we cannot quantify that. Plus, per day cost of parking car in New York, $25. So in the light of all these information, let's talk about the relevant cost. So which cost and benefits are relevant in Cynthia's decision? And what is the decision? Either go from train or through own car. So the cost of car is a sunk cost. And why is that? Because she already paid 24,000 and it has nothing to do with whether she can go to the train or not. She already paid that even before deciding this, whether she need to go to the New York to meet the friend or not. Even then, she already expensed this 24,000. So it's a sunk cost, and sunk costs are not relevant in decision making, right? The annual cost of insurance is also not relevant. Why? Because you already paid annual subscription, not the monthly subscription. If it is based on mileages, if it is based on per month, then it would be irrelevant. But since you paid it for yearly basis, so whether you use your car for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, or do not use that, still that premium is not going to be decreased or increased. You already paid for the whole year, so that's why it is not relevant. Understand? So as it will remain the same if she drives or take the train, right? It means these are the common cost. If we just make the differential, if we make the two different statements here, so here train trip on car. So if she owned the car, she paid 24,000. Whether she go for